In 2019, an artificial intelligence system trained by OpenAI defeated the world's best human teams at Dota 2, one of the most strategically complex multiplayer games ever made. The system's name was OpenAI 5, and the number that defined it was this. It had accumulated approximately 45,000 years of simulated gameplay experience over 10 months of real time, running at roughly 250 years of virtual combat per day. That is not a metaphor. That is 45,000 years of tactical decision-making, team coordination, spatial reasoning under pressure, and adaptive strategy compressed into less than a year by running the simulation faster than real time. The U.S. military noticed. DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, launched a program called Gamebreaker specifically to figure out whether artificial intelligence systems trained on commercial video games could have their learned strategies transferred to Department of Defense wargaming scenarios. The program's manager, Lieutenant Colonel Dan Javorcek, said it directly in the program announcement. If we can figure out a generic method to assess and manipulate balance in commercial video games, my hope is that we might then apply those algorithms to create imbalance in DoD, simulated war games used to train warfighters for real-world battle. That sentence was not classified. It was published publicly on DARPA's website. The logic connecting video game training to real military systems is called sim-to-real transfer, and it is one of the most active research areas in both commercial artificial intelligence and defense technology. The core principle is that an artificial intelligence system trained in a simulation can learn strategies, responses, and decision patterns that transfer to real-world environments, provided the simulation is realistic enough. The gap between a game engine's physics and the real world has historically been the limiting factor. That gap is closing faster than almost anyone anticipated. The U.S. Air Force published a request for information in late 2025 for a system called WarMatrix, described as a cloud-based artificial intelligence digital sandbox capable of running wargame simulations at up to 10,000 times faster than real time. The stated purpose was to run hundreds or thousands of strategic iterations in the time a traditional tabletop exercise would run one, testing force designs, logistics plans, and courses of action at a scale and speed that human planners simply cannot match. Every entity in WarMatrix is represented as an autonomous agent reacting to real-time conditions. This is not science fiction set in 2040. This is a current Air Force program with a public request for proposals. The connection to consumer gaming runs deeper than strategic logic. Northrop Grumman has been working on the DARPA Gamebreaker contract using artificial intelligence deployed in commercial real-time strategy games to find exploitable advantages, with the explicit goal of determining whether those same advantages could be found and exploited in real military simulations. The framing from Northrop's program manager is revealing. Wargaming with game technology and AI, not to be confused with traditional tabletop exercises, really allows us to rapidly explore strategies and optimize for tactics selection, fleet composition, and mission outcomes. The skills being optimized, target prioritization, flanking decisions, resource allocation under uncertainty, navigation in complex terrain are identical whether the environment is a game server or a battlefield. Meanwhile, the artificial intelligence systems being deployed in actual military hardware are increasingly trained through exactly the simulation-first process the gaming world pioneered. DARPA's Tiamat program is specifically focused on robust sim-to-real transfer for autonomous vehicles with the goal of training systems in simulation and deploying them on physical platforms in the real world. The Pentagon's Replicator Initiative, launched in 2023 and continuing through 2026, has invested over $18 billion since 2020 toward deploying thousands of autonomous drones capable of operating in coordinated swarms without continuous human input on every decision. The navigation logic those systems use is refined in exactly the kind of digital sandbox that WarMatrix and its predecessors were designed to create. In June 2025, the Department of Defense awarded OpenAI a $200 million one-year contract to develop artificial intelligence tools for military and national security applications. OpenAI 5, the system that accumulated 45,000 years of Dota 2 experience, was built by the same organization now under Pentagon contract. The ethical dimension of this pipeline is the part that most coverage skips past. Anthropic, one of OpenAI's primary competitors, reached a point in February 2026 where the company refused to authorize the Department of Defense to use its artificial intelligence systems for autonomous weapons or domestic mass surveillance. The Pentagon labeled Anthropic a supply chain risk in response, a designation typically reserved for companies from adversarial nations, and immediately shifted its contract to OpenAI, which agreed to deploy its models on the Pentagon's classified network. Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei, had said publicly that the company's safety principles include a prohibition on human responsibility being removed from the use of force. OpenAI's CEO, Sam Altman, said the DoD had agreed to prevent its technology from being used on autonomous weapon systems and had requested those limitations itself. Whether those commitments hold as the technology matures and as the pressure to deploy autonomous systems against adversaries who face no equivalent restrictions intensifies is the open question nobody in the industry can answer honestly right now. The UN treaty negotiations over a binding prohibition on fully autonomous lethal weapon systems stalled as of March 2026, specifically because the United States and Russia refused to sign a binding agreement. What is not disputed is the direction of the technology. The same reinforcement learning methods that taught an artificial intelligence to beat the world's best human players at a complex multiplayer game are now being used to train autonomous systems that will operate in environments where the consequences of a wrong decision are not a lost match, but a lost life. The simulation that was once a game has become the training ground for something with no restart button. If this changed how you think about what the military artificial intelligence pipeline actually looks like and where it is heading, subscribe and leave a comment below about whether you think sim-to-real transfer for autonomous weapons should require international oversight before deployment, because that debate is happening right now and most people have no idea it is occurring.